Question. DS. Is absolute value of whole of p minus q less than absolute value of p minus r? Condition 1. Absolute value of q is less than absolute value of r. Condition 2. P is greater than 0. Solution. Let's solve this DS question using the variable approach. The distance between x and y on the number line is given by absolute value of whole of x minus y, or absolute value of whole of y minus x. Since absolute value of whole of x minus y equals absolute value of whole of y minus x, let's apply the 3 steps suggested previously. Follow the first step of the variable approach by modifying and rechecking the original condition and the question. We have to find out whether absolute value of whole of p minus q is less than absolute value of whole of p minus r. This means that we have to determine whether the distance of r from p is greater than the distance of q from p. In other words, which of the two, r or q, is farther from p? If you follow the official guide explanation for this type of question, it will take almost 10 minutes. Apply the simpler variable approach. Since there are 3 variables, E is the answer. Follow the second and the third steps. From the original condition, we have 3 variables, p, q, and r. To match the number of variables with a number of equations, we need 3 equations. Since conditions 1 and 2 will provide 1 equation each, we need 1 more equation, and E would most likely be the answer. Recall 3 principles and choose E as the most likely answer. Let's take a look at conditions 1 and 2 together. Condition 1 tells us that absolute value of q is less than absolute value of r. We can write this as absolute value of whole of q minus 0 is less than absolute value of whole of r minus 0, which means the distance between q and 0 is smaller than the distance between r and 0, and condition 2 tells us that p is greater than 0. Both condition 1 and condition 2 together tell us that absolute value of whole of q minus 0 is less than absolute value of whole of r minus 0, and p is greater than 0. Absolute value of whole of p minus r is between r and p. Absolute value of whole of p minus q is between p and q. This is yes. Absolute value of whole of p minus q is between q and p. Absolute value of whole of p minus r is between p and r. This is no. Here are some numerical examples to prove the answer is E. If r equals -10, p equals 1, and q equals 5, the answer will be yes, as q is closer to p as compared to r. If q equals -5, p equals 8, and r equals 10, the answer will be no, as r is closer to p as compared to q. We do not get a unique answer, yes and no, so the conditions combined are not sufficient by the common mistake type 1, which means that you get both yes and no as the answer. It is not sufficient. Both conditions 1 and 2 together are not sufficient, so E is the correct answer. Answer, E.